everybody, can you hear my voice?
Yes, a little loud, Sam.
Ah, tough shit, you got no choice. So grab a glass and sit back in your chair, 'cause Uncorked is going live to air.
So here we are, episode 13.
Is
Batch
it?
13. Yeah, apparently so.
How do you keep track?
I read the document.
Is there a central document? Great.
There is a central
Someone
document
responsible behind
we
all
were
of it.
supposed to read, yes, and I just got it up right this minute. And I've just looked forward, it's 13. What are we talking about this week? I'm quite excited, actually, because we've got some great guests.
We got great guests. We'll introduce them in a sec, but we were talking about something that's topical, but I want to, in a boutique way, we wanted to, when we were discussing this, remember last week or a couple of weeks ago, we wanted to avoid the T word and talk more about the idea of, could you make whiskey in space? And would it taste different?
Well,
That's a
Would it?
stupid idea. All right,
That's a
fine.
stupid idea.
you're missing Bill's, so I mean that would be his point of expertise, I would say. So
Well, then let's first of all let's introduce our first guest who isn't here, Dr. Jill Blumston. Didn't return our emails, although he did call me saying, yeah, no problem, I'd love to take part, and then blanked. But instead, we got the Thompson brothers. Dave, do you want to introduce their guests?
We have the Thompson brothers from Dornoch Castle Hotel and, of course, the Dornoch Distillery. We have Simon and Phil Thompson. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
go on then, Si.
Well, yeah. We built a distillery to make the kind of whiskey we like to drink. That was the plan. And 4 years later now, we've got a little distillery. Everything usually works, and about as small as can be. And we just do it our own way. We just do our own thing, really. It's our own thing. We can play. There's no pressure. There's no shareholders. There's no debt. No one tells us what to do. So we just get to mess around and do as we please, really. So it's all Brewers yeast, heritage varieties of barley, slow distillations, long fermentations, wind washbacks, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, just our own little thing. Very modular. We can mess around and do what we like.
It's not really a plaything because, like, if it goes under, we don't have a house
Oh
anymore.
yeah.
So you have to think about
So
that context as
I
well.
read from your bio on your website that you're a yeast enthusiast, a doting father, a devoted practitioner of distillation, a frequenter of thought vortexes. Simon is one half of the Thompson brothers and is the abstract technical yin to Phil's traveling business acumen yang. Is that true?
Sounds like Angus wrote that.
Yeah, I think yeah.
And Phil once called Curly and played the bass in a band. He's
That's
now called Phil and is doggedly building a family distilling empire. But you go back before distilling to the Dornoch Castle bar. I mean, that's where I first met you in the whiskey bar in the hotel up there, with some amazing bottles of whiskey open.
Yeah, I think you were probably up on one of these industry freebies to say nice things about bands in the area, Lucas and some other folk. But yeah, I think we did a podcast. There's actually a podcast with Mark Gillespie that we did that night. Somewhere
right.
out there. And we made Mark,
Mark took over the whole.
I questioned
episode.
his integrity and he swore, and I think it was the longest podcast he had done up until that point. It was also very frustrating when we were working.
Yeah, we're literally working behind the bar and being interviewed for the podcast at the same time. So there was a bit of multitasking going on.
I remember sitting at the bar.
Yeah, it was a weird one.
He does get a little bit jabby with the microphone as well.
Yeah, right in the face.
Very thrusty.
Thrusty Gillespie. Yes, that's not what you want in the bar. But what's the background? So you got your house is on the line now that you're distilling. How did you get here? Why do you give a shit about whiskey?
So our family stupidly bought a hotel in 2000. They had sort of had my parents had a hotel in the 80s and 90s, and it was always like, right, that's it, no more hotels, not going anywhere near them, let's just do like consultancy and have a normal life. But yeah, they ended up buying this, and then proxy and necessity, we ended up kind of working. Of course, being offered the opportunity to learn a trade and work.
School holidays, university holidays, so all that sort of stuff. And you just ended up running the bar for extended periods of time. And when we took over, it maybe had 20-something decent whiskies, and you lose a barman. You're 18, you take over, you have to start doing the ordering. You're tasting whiskey, you're like, "Ooh, this is good. I want to try this next." And before you know it, 25 odd whiskies will become 30, becomes 40, becomes 50. And before you know it, you're installing new shelves, and the whole thing's going out of control.
Yeah.
So yeah, we both started getting really into tasting whiskey, and also collecting gradually as well. We a few extra bits on the orders for ourselves. Started going to auctions. That was the good old days when it's live hammer auctions, no online stuff, and it was just you, the guys in the room, and who had money in their pocket and knew what they were looking at.
Yeah.
So we had a great time then. So our collection started to expand a lot of old bottles from auction at that point, as well as our personal collections. And the whole thing just kind of gradually grew out of control and kind of became our primary hobby, really, as well as our day job.
But you must have made it work. Not only did people like Dave write about it, or Mark Gillespie stick your microphones in your face about it, but like people, it's a going business, and it's a destination for so many whiskey nerds and tourists around the world.
Well, we based it on quality of selection, finding we had a good knack for finding really interesting, rare stuff that wouldn't crop up in other places, and putting those out at a fair price. So rather than putting a standard markup on everything, part of our philosophy was the higher the value of the bottle goes, we would reduce our markup, and we just see it as a higher transaction. You're making more money per transaction. And that offered very good value to the enthusiast. So your standard whiskies were at standard prices, but as you started going up, and whereas a lot of whiskey bars, high-end stuff, they'll same margin across the board. The margin will increase as the bottle value goes up.
Even if it's an open bottle, they'll increase the value in stock.
And that just ends up with the same bottles sitting on the shelf year after year. So you come back, same bar in 4 years' time, it's the same bottle, but the price is doubled or tripled, and the condition's gone. So we wanted to be able to turn things around in a reasonable time, sell everything when it was at its best condition.
Yeah. We also wanted to, like, if we find anything, obviously opening old bottles, you do come across things that are soapy and tainted by like old capsules and things. We were always very conscious to be absolutely clear with our customers on the quality of the liquid. We price it accordingly. So I think at the moment I opened a 1964 Glenalbyn, signatory bottling at 58%, which on paper sounds amazing. And people who have opened this bottling that I know, said it's amazing, but ours was tainted, slightly soapy. You could tell there's a great distiller there, but something had tainted inside the bottle, whether it was the RO water or something that cleaned the glass early on. It tainted it. So we now charge like £5 for it as a kind of token. You want to try something that's very ridiculously soapy and terrible to drink, but it's from the 60s. It's £5 instead of like £35 as it kind of probably should be. So we just try and be as fair as possible, and we wanted to try, and we realised that we're not in Speyside, we're not on Islay, we're not in Edinburgh, we're not in Glasgow, so you don't have that automatic pool of kind of whiskey people there all the time. So we needed to make something that was a little bit kind of more of a destination. So by having, the basic formula of having shit at a fair price, people go for it and they go out of their way to try and come here. So that's the
and also just always making a point of finding extreme rarities where people will travel just to try that thing that's behind your bar. So we've done that with a lot of really cool, interesting stuff that some bottlings have taken us years to get hold of, and then ended up open on the bar, and that's been a good draw for people to up and visit as well.
On their way up to piss on the Duke of Sutherland statue.
Yeah.
So it's worth a visit, everyone. Get up to Dornoch Hotel. That's the end of the advertisement, and now we can pay for this episode.
Yeah.
Hey, let's introduce the other guest.
We have another guest. Yeah, we have Ian. Is it O'Brien or O'Brien?
O'Brien.
O'Brien, head distiller at the Waterford Distillery in Ireland.
Not a head distiller, just a distiller.
Just a distiller.
We're just trying to get you in trouble.
Yeah. I can do that all by myself. Thanks very much.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I have actually got some Waterford in my glass right now.
Very
Ian,
nice.
it's Ballykilcaven 1.1.
Yeah, that's one of our first releases, one of the first single farm releases that came out there about 2.5 months ago. Flew off the shelves. We didn't expect the demand that was going to be there for it, and there was a lot of unhappy punters and whiskey drinkers out there around Ireland and across Europe that didn't
Well,
get
let's
their
get
hands
into that
on
in a
it.
sec. Ian, who are you though, man? How'd you get here? What are you doing here?
Distiller, former Guinness brewer that used to work on the site that Mark Rainier bought over 6 years ago now, and went banging on the door looking for my job back. Wasn't a very long interview, to be honest, and basically all I had to learn was how to heat stuff up and cool stuff down, and got my head around the distilling part of it, and I'm there now 5 years. 5 years distiller, yeah.
All right, so the Thompsons are laughing when you say that. Yeah.
Well, distilling's the easy bit. You already had all the skills for the most important part. So yeah, distilling's not rocket science, but the most important parts happens during the fermentation. Yeah, and on the brew side.
And it was exactly the same plant that I was used to for 10 or 11 years while I worked for Guinness, and we just coordinated that. We just brought stills in. Mark had the old stills from Inverleven. He had one out the front in Bruichladdich, I think, as a kind of a piece, and he had another one in a shed. I remember he said, I had him in the shed. I said, I've only got a lawnmower in my shed. How big is your shed? And he got them reconditioned by Forsyths and put them in and pumping away. The best liquid ever. Very good actually for stills that are over 30 years old. But working there, part of the distilling team of 4 distillers, and it's been a kind of a crazy journey. I think we're kind of a lot of talk at the town at the moment, and there's pro Waterford and anti Waterford about things that we do, and a little bit of naysaying going on and stuff like that.
Small town politics, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
More.
Well, I don't think we're out there to cause the fuss. I think just the fuss has been, it's crazy sometimes, when you think of social media and stuff like that, and you think that, people want to enjoy whiskies and try new things, and what we're doing is kind of what Mark started off in Bruichladdich, and now he's just brought it full thing to what it is now. But strange, but very interesting now, since we have bottles out in the market, we actually get real drinkers getting them, and not just people in the whiskey community who just want to have a little go and a little dig sometimes.
There's lots of angry people on social media.
Yeah, I think there is. I think people need a lot more coffee in the mornings before they actually go online.
There seems to be. I live on Twitter, as lots of people know. I do live on Twitter, and Twitter used to be a really nice, safe space.
Yeah.
It was lots of fun, lots of banter. There just seems to be so many angry people on there about anything these days.
I agree with you. I totally agree. But when I started going on Twitter and stuff like that just from a whiskey enthusiast, not even as a distiller, it used to be the best fun. Everyone was on the same line. Everyone was just, sharing stories about having drams that night with their friends and stuff like that. And now it's kind of, I don't know, it's the love has kind of gone out of it a little bit.
Well, we've spoken about this on the show before, that the level of connoisseurship has an arc. I think that when you get into whiskey, first you're wide-eyed and optimistic, and you just want to deal. And I'm sure at the hotel you've had guests who come in and they're like, "Oh no, I don't drink Glenfiddich," or some sort of snobbery based on a limited amount of knowledge, But when we get more highly engaged, we do end up seeing more negativity, more cynicism, people expecting the worst, people seeing behind the curtain and never believing again, but still being engaged. So that brings us to, I guess, what we want to talk about today, because it is obviously Waterford's in the news over the last month, because finally we got some liquid that's got a strong message and a strong ideology and a strong spokesperson in Mark Rainier behind it. And so we'd love you to talk about that and a little bit what's been going on. And Dave will take us through sort of what terroir is, or what regionality might mean, what it has meant historically, by acts of parliament and taxation. But also you guys at Dornoch, without any of the politics or the big Mark Rainey spokesperson, just doing what you do. I think talking about what's important, because we all come from being passionate about whiskey. That's the beginning. We're whiskey enthusiasts, all of us. So the intention must be pure, you would hope. So just if we could just talk about, first of all, like what you guys do, just in the most plain sense, like what spirit do you make at Dornoch, and then what spirit do you make at Waterford? And then Dave, let's get into the terroir stuff after that.
Okay.
All right. So spirit at Dornoch is very variable. So we're always tweaking little things here and there. But the uniting kind of house style, we're cramming in a huge amount of complexity, mineral, huge amounts of minerality, and a lot of fruity flavors. And that varies from batch to batch, depending on what yeast varieties we're using, what methods we're using, even which washbacks it's coming from. So, what we're really doing is cramming in as much complexity, as much chemical complexity on the front end to give the possibility for really interesting things to happen during the maturation process. So we're really.
Let me just stop you there then. Sorry, because I'm sorry at the front. So then you mentioned yeast, raw materials are important, but also you mentioned washback. So first of all, barley strains, you have various ones, or what's the plan there?
Yeah. So currently we've been mostly using Majarcha and Marsauter. In the field just now, about to get
Being harvested at the moment.
harvested right now. We've got Scotch Common, Scotch Anat. Those are two historical strains. I think Scotch Common was maybe last used in the 1920s. This is the last time I found a record of it being used in distilling. And Scotch Anat goes back even further. And then we've got some West Coast beer barley, and we've got some Orkney beer barley in field. We've got some Majarcha we're using right now. So almost everything we do is organic as well. So it doesn't need to be, but it's. I think I sold it to Phil as like a long-term insurance policy, because you don't know what the world's going to look like in 20, 30, 40 years down the line. So we decided to go organic. Everything's floor malted, though. Some batches we've got coming soon will be malted at Crafty Maltsters. They've got little 4-ton drum maltings as well. That won't be organic. And then for yeast varieties, God knows how many we've used now, 30 something, maybe up to 40 different varieties. I'm not entirely sure, I'd have to count.
Are you developing your own yeasts?
Sort of. So we mostly use, so originally we were doing all our propagations ourselves. And now we've moved to more using spent brewer's yeast from local breweries. So that's mostly the Cromarty Brewery and the Black Isle Brewery. Spent brewer's yeast is great because there's, it's going through 5, 6, 7 pitches before it gets to us. So, once it starts to have a performance or a flavor drift, then it's going to get dumped and we take it. So it's going to be different, even though it started off as the same strain for that type of beer. Of course, each brewery is using multiple strains for different types of beer. By the time it gets to us, it's already changed a bit. And then we'll use one fresh pitch and then one repitch, or sometimes a repitch plus a fresh pitch. And then our wooden washback, we barely clean them. So we've got the ghost of every yeast variety we've ever used living in there as well. So as well as our own native colonies of wild yeast, lactic acid bacteria, and whatever else happens to fall in there.
That's it's really interesting. I mean, the Scotch Common, I've got very little records. I mean, I'm a barley enthusiast. So when I'm seeing heritage grains being grown and malted, that's really quite interesting, because if you look at sort of barley on the timeline, how slowly the changes have been over the beginning of last century, and then from the 50s and 60s, how quickly those barley strains were developed for maximum yields for the Scottish temperate climate, and how few barleys are grown today. Basically, just Concerto and Laureate, I think, were the most common last year. We're digging out all of these old barleys is really quite interesting. I think I saw a tweet from you, Ian, about some heritage grains that you were looking to distill. It was Hunter, was from 59 or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. And we have another one from the 1900s as well that we're coming on. We've used some of them already, and we have some other ones coming on next year. And that will be a series of bottles that will be coming out next year, called the Arcadian series. I love these names. I don't know them. But the Arcadian series is coming out next year, so that will be like organic and biodynamic and these other heritage grains that will be coming out.
So there you go, Ian. I see we're all sipping something. So
Yeah.
what have you guys got in your glass? Before Ian, it'd be good if you introduced sort of your first stages as well at Waterford.
So so we'll talk the whiskey first.
Yeah, what do you got?
I'm having a Waterford prototype organic 1.1.
Loyal. I think in time, when there's more Waterford releases, we're all going to really struggle to keep track of the multiple names and numbers. But all the best from your perspective. I can't make sense of it already. I love the imagery. What have you got, Dave? I'm going Scottish.
I'm still drinking some Waterford at the moment.
And what about you, Thompson? What are you drinking?
So right now we're on a cheeky little Alaska here. 1957 cast strength. So old G&M bottling should be good.
We need to do a podcast recording up there, I think.
As soon as we're allowed to leave our houses. Oh wait, we can't we?
So we're basically in a bunker here. So we're in an old semi-underground cellar at the base of the tower here. So I think you'd probably be allowed to get locked in here.
I can think of
locked in Ireland means a completely different thing.
I don't mind a lock-in. Yeah, my local Irish pub, it's the only one that does lock-ins. Then he brings out cheese and onion sandwiches at about 1 a.m.
Oh, nice. That is good.
It's super classic.
We got a little bit distracted there. So Ian's going to tell us about what they're doing at Waterford.
So basically, at Waterford, if you haven't all heard it already, we kind of work on the French system of terroir, where we believe that where the barley is grown and harvested plays interaction with the flavors that come through in the brewing and the distilling side of things. So at the moment we have distilled over 72 individual farms in batches, and all brewed the same. We do use different barley varieties depending on, because everyone needs to work on yields and stuff like that. We want to get the most we possibly can out of it. But we have a library of new make spirit that would blow anybody's mind if they went in to have a look at it. It's just completely, every one of the samples are really different. Some in a lot of different ways, but some just very slight differences. But it just carries through from the barley or the soil it actually comes from, even from the actual little microclimates or the topography of the land itself have big changes. Even some farms that would be very close together would give completely different taste profiles after distillation, which is crazy in itself, actually. So Mark had started this, Mark Rainey had started this in Brookladdy, but now he's come to fruition in Waterford, and he has whiskey, proper whiskey that's coming out time after time after time. We might bring out every single farm, we might leave it couple of years, but I think we have about 8 or 9 bottles out now at the moment, I think, with some more coming next year.
But Thompson's, you too, and also up at Waterford, like would these farmers be growing these grains if it weren't for you as customers?
Yeah, well, you do stimulate the demands, and some things are grown specifically for us. So day one, we didn't really have the buying power, so we were looking at this kind of specialist things that were available. But now it's a case where things are being specifically grown for us, and we've got the maltsters on the lookout for any farmers who are interested in growing interesting things. So we're really lucky the crafty maltsters wanted to do all these heritage varieties of grain, so they contacted us about that. So we'll be taking almost the entire harvest from them.
Yeah. And we're quite
same as Waterford. All these farmers, they actually just grow the barley directly for us, and it's malted in for us and stored for us all separately. So it's the same type of thing. And I what I like about it is that it gives the farmer a real connection to a finished product. Really, actually, it's good for them too. It's not just thrown off to Diageo, where they just pile it into a super distillery and just make plonk out spirit for blends and stuff like that. They actually have a real connection, and they're like with the bottles, like with Bannow Island 1.1. That's the name of their actually the field it came from, which is a really nice touch, actually, I think.
Well, it's probably true that we as consumers give a shit about that, because we see it in food more than ever, where there is some connection to the farm. Like certainly at more high-end grocers and supermarkets, you do see this, but it must be something that we do want to know where something came from. Dave, were you going to ask us about terroir?
Well, terroir. Yeah, what does it mean?
I mean, to
me,
I just want you to say it again.
Terroir. Terroir. Well, it's French, isn't it? That's for sure.
Almost as douchey as it really is when you say it.
I know. Is it made up? I don't know. Is it real? It seems.
What does that mean to you? That idea of terroir?
Well, certainly, terroir is what it's been described to me as a sense of place, and a sense of place is what I get from certain whiskies, but only because drinking an Islay whiskey certainly takes me. A smoky Islay certainly takes me back there. Every time I take a sip of some heavily peated Lagavulins or Lafroigs or Ardbegs or any of those, it takes me back to Islay. That's because I've been there. The first whiskey that really grabbed my soul was an Islay whiskey, but it didn't take me to Islay. It was, this is delicious. I need to drink more of this shit. I need to find out about this shit. But it didn't take me to Islay because I've never been there. So, whiskey is evocative of memories. And if I've never been there, how can I remember it? Every time I taste one of those classic Speysiders, the Glenelgans, I'm there around that area because, Speyside, I've just seen someone post a picture. They travelled up to Speyside and just posted a picture of the Spey and go, "Oh, Speyside, I've missed you." And I think, "Oh, so have I." I mean, yeah, it just looks absolutely beautiful. And, Scotland's absolutely beautiful at this time of year, the sun coming out, the heather on the hills. It is beautiful, but the whiskey can take you there, but only if you've been there. So from a field, does it really matter? To me, I don't think it does. When I'm drinking an Armagnac or a cognac from these these high-end regions, would I know? Is it any better than the ones from the other crews? I don't know anything about French wines or Armagnac or cognac. So terroir, I don't know. Do I get that feeling? Do you feel part of that field when you name the field and what the farmer did on that day? What I am really interested is about the grains. I think heritage grain, whiskey flavour has changed, isn't it? We've had this really, really interesting story or chat with Angus a little while back, a few podcasts ago, about how whiskey has changed. Strains of barley changing flavour, fermentation times changing, distillation regimes changing because of yield of modern spirits. So going back and taking a step back with heritage grains and slowing down the fermentations like you guys are doing, playing with yeasts before going, I think it's more important to me than knowing exactly where it came from, because surely that's all going to be taken away when you put it in wood.
But
I love how Ian, Phil, and Simon are all chomping at the bit to get in on that. I fucking love it.
But I suppose
I
don't want you. I suppose when the way we think about it is that it's not that I want you to think that you're sitting in a ditch in Enniscorthy in County Wexford when you're drinking whiskey. It's the fact that
there are worse ditches to sit in.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's a bit misty out today. I wouldn't like to be sitting in a ditch. But it's what that actual soil or topography actually lends to the actual barley is what we're trying to prove, actually, because we were in the middle of doing documents and stuff like that will actually prove this. And I promised I was to send you over tasting sets like that, and because the distillery was shut down, it didn't happen. But I will send them on to all you guys after this, and I'll get your addresses and stuff like that. But it's like when I started distilling, I was a doubting Thomas too. Raw materials are raw materials, and you just produce the spirit and let it do its work. But like even out doing the cuts on the safe every single day on every single run, they're all different on every farm. And even on the nose and on the palate, it's not that I want you to think that you'll probably never sit in Bannow Island or in Ballymorgan or Sheestown, and you'll never have that connection with it. And I don't think even people who would be from Bannow Island will have any connection to it. It's just that we just want to show that the raw material of the barley has changed because of where it's grown, and it does influence the actual the finished new make after we distill it. And we have all these individual different types of new makes that will create individual types of whiskey, like the brewing and the mashing and the milling and fermentation times. They're all the exact same. So the only variance is the barley and where it's grown.
Mm.
We use the same cask varieties or the cask types when we're maturing, and even you can see the differences between them all. Like we use the same percentages of 4 different cask types. We put them into it, and when you come back out of it, you have very, very distinct different whiskies. And I don't think, as I said, like you said, you don't think when you drink a Lagavulin that you're sitting in Islay looking out at the beautiful scenery around you. I don't think that's what we're trying to do, because even I don't even think that really. I don't think I'm sitting in Ballymorgan, or I don't think I'm sitting in Bloomsland while I'm drinking the Bloomsland 1.1. It's not about that. It's just that we're producing different individual styles of whiskey from the barley that we used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. For me, I think the jury's out a little bit. So our philosophy is give it a go and see what happens. So, I love it that at Waterford they're trying all this, and I can't wait to see the results, because I found that even the tiniest little thing makes a difference, and everything makes a difference. So I'm sure there will be some really interesting results to come from Waterford over time. Yeah, really looking forward to that. The sense of place and terroir, we wouldn't push that too hard. Our yeast comes locally, our barley comes from all over. It's mostly malted in England as well, because up until recently there was no small scale maltings existing in Scotland. The smallest commercial custom batch you could have done was 28 tons. Oh, sorry guys, we're having a bit of feedback here. Is that because
it could be one of our speakers? I'm in headphones, Dave's in headphones, so I'm going to say it's Ian's fault. And for viewers at home, you can follow Ian O'Brien and you can banter, you can give him a hard time for causing all sorts of oral challenges.
So I wouldn't push the terroir thing for us too hard, but if we could, I want to be shortening our supply chains next year. So we've been playing around with the idea of doing little mini maltings plants here. Take a good percentage of our own maltings here, and then we can shorten our supply chains, have local farmers nearby. All the farmers we've met are happy to grow us whatever we need. So I'd love to shorten those supply chains. We have done, I suppose, really one batch of local barley with local peat, locally malted, but that was a side project. One of our distillers. So we let them kind of cut loose, do their own thing for their own cask. And
I would probably say historically, I recognise terroir more in peat than I do perhaps in a rotational soil, a rotational crop like barley, which is going to have something planted there year in, year out. So certainly when you look at things like Isla peat, Speyside peat, certainly old Orkney peat as well. When we taste these older bottles of whiskey where they were doing their own maltings on site and they were sourcing the peat locally, or they had a specific region where they're sourcing the peat, I definitely think you recognise more terroir. I can personally recognise more terroir in those bottlings than I can certainly in more modern Isla or modern Speyside, because I probably kind of argue that with modern production styles and modern certainly barley, you could probably quite easily recreate an Isla style to evoke those Isla memories in Speyside if you're going to select the peat and you're going to distill it in a way to kind of carry more of that kind of peatiness in the tails and so on. I think that I would argue that you could recreate that for a consumer.
Well, that's what Rose Isle's for. Rose Isle can make. Well, I think the idea of that was to make a number of different styles for filling blending requirements, and then freeing up the single malts to be out more as single malts. So it'd be interesting to see, their libraries and how their experiments have gone with making, an Isla style, a Speyside, a Highland style, and I don't really know much what's been going on there, but I was aware that was one of the original concepts of the distillery.
I think from a tiny distillery perspective that has like no marketing budget or anything, that Waterford or anybody who wants to go out and talk about these things, like how important the raw ingredients are, helps Dornoch massively. So for us, I'd love to explore what Waterford are doing in more detail. I've tasted a few cask samples from people who sent stuff, but I'd love to sit down. I think I probably would recognise differences in new make, but as Dave's mentioned, personally, I'm not sure once it gets into like an STR cask or a wine cask whether I'm going to pick up individual idiosyncrasies that you may have found in the distillate. What would be of more interest to me is to put it into like refill wood and leave it for like 15 years and be like, told you so. I think would be more recognisable. Or as a whiskey consumer, I'd be able to recognise it. I think also as a conversation, and kudos to Waterford for doing it, it's like most whiskey consumers, I don't think they so deep into it, whereby they're, it's the very kind of geeky upper echelon of the kind of whiskey geek world where they're like really looking into terroir, looking at older peat varieties, they look at the old bottlings, look at old barley varieties. And I think the battle to convert the day-to-day consumer to terroir and whiskey is going to be like, going to be pretty tough in my honest opinion. More power to you for doing it. I think it's for us as it's tiny distillery, what the big guys do brings a focus onto like the sort of product that we make. There's slight kind of crossovers. That's a positive thing for us. For sure.
Time will tell. I guess the true test will be a few years down the line, and if you get some of these guys with the extreme noses, people like Hideo Yamaoka with his crazy nose, if they can pick up a Waterford blind. And once they've become familiar with the range and the different farms, and if they can nose that and taste that and go, that's from this farm, and then you can check and go, oh, yep.
But one of the things I would say is like, a specialist whiskey taster could probably pick up those minute differences, but can the general consumer that Dave, you see at whiskey shows, Ian, you'll see at whiskey shows, do you think that you can talk to them about it and they're going to understand it, or whether you're going to tell them about it and they're going to go, yeah, I see exactly what you mean, and then they go and pump a load of Lagavulin down their face? It's kind of like I think you guys are doing a great thing, but I'm interested to sit on the sidelines and watch it. It's pretty thrilling stuff for whiskey in general.
Yeah, but I suppose you can take it both ways. I suppose you don't, as you said, that upper geek, that top level of stuff that they're looking for something new in whiskey and stuff like that. You can also just bloody drink it as a good bottle of whiskey too. You don't have to take it so serious. I suppose you can just sit down and enjoy. You know what? That's a decent dram. I don't really want to get into all the background of it and stuff like that. There's whiskey lovers out there who don't. You have the old style whiskey drinker, and then you have the new types of us and whiskey makers like yourselves at Dornoch and stuff like that, who are trying to push little things and tweak little things to move it to a different place. And that might be geeky to them, but it might be just a bloody bottle of whiskey to somebody else, It just might be a good quality bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. I suppose it's...
sorry, go ahead.
I suppose it's one of these things that, like, from when you start getting into, like, a sales and retail environment, whereby somebody stood in a whiskey shop somewhere can tell somebody, like, Speyside has this style, Isla has this style, and so on, that, like, you then need to convert that information to the guys who you want to retail your product and make sure the guys in the environment don't just go, yeah, it's just a great dram. They've got to be able to tell you why, because if you have 10 or 20 different Waterfords on a shelf, you need somebody to be able to convey that information, convey the story, convey everything to it.
Sam Snack's coming out.
And that's a good point, actually, that we probably need to pass on that knowledge to the retailers, that they're to, bring them across and maybe do small little tours and tastings with us to get them used to what we're doing here and stuff like that. But also, I suppose, we don't expect everybody to buy every single bottle that we ever release, you know what I mean? Just dive in there at different stages over the years and see what's different. Like, there will be, like, there was Bano 1.1, Bano Island 1.1. There'll be a 1.2 that comes out that'll be, it'll be a different harvest and different stuff like that. There'll be a different whiskey.
It'll be a different
I suppose I could see him overwhelming, but I suppose if you just step back for it and just think of it as a bottle of whiskey and leave the terroir bit to one side if you want to.
Is terroir really important in the whiskey industry? Do you think it's really important in the whiskey industry? I mean, to me, it doesn't seem that important.
It seems as important as a music studio. I mean, the metaphor, the reason I think you two guests are perfect is that I see Waterford, to keep the music metaphor, and I know you're all into music as well. Some people grab a record and see where it was recorded, who was the engineer. And some engineers love control. They love to have a very sterile recording environment so they can control all the little elements. And I think that's a Waterford style. Waterford wants to have the different elements and be able to measure them as time goes on. Whereas I do see Dornoch as more as a Trinity Sessions, Cowboy Junkies type of thing, where you're recording in a church and all the imperfections or all the accidents that happen are part of the beautiful final product. But in both cases, can you listen to the music? In both cases, all that it comes down to is the whiskey enjoyable? The extra stuff is there. Of course, there's layers to get into with every distillery, even a workhorse like Rosal, when we start seeing some of that stuff, or Glen Elgin or Mortlock or Glenfiddich. Yeah, workhorse distilleries. Excuse me. I think
I was doing a tasting for the Belfast Whiskey Week. There are 2 tastings last week, and there was people asking, and I said, just like, we're not Hogwarts, we're just a distillery. Like, we're not doing magic. We're actually doing the same things. Like, we're brewing and distilling, but we just change the variable of the barley and where it's grown, and everything else is the same. So we just, so we're producing all these different types of new makes, and they're completely different in style, some of them, and it's just from the barley. It's not from anything else that we change. So it's just, we bring out different bottles every now and again and just let people dive in and have a look at it. That's all really.
Yeah, I think there's I think there's plenty of space for it, and it'll be really interesting to see how it develops. And as more variables you can change along the way. So you've got 72 different farms, all the different barley bins. That's the variable you're changing just now. Variation will lead to more interesting things. I'm a big fan of variation in production.
I have a question. Are you planning something like a kind of almost like a cuvee where you're going to blend various farms together?
Yeah, we have. We released a cuvee at the start called Pilgrimage, where we put all of the first year's harvest, 2015, 16. There was 32 different farms in the one bottle and that together. Yeah. Okay. But we have those, and the organic is five farmers that grew organic barley for us, but we put them all we've distilled them, brewed them and distilled them individually, but we're vatting them all together for a bottle.
Nice.
So what about, look, whiskey category is intimidating enough to a lot of people, and you guys have already made the distinction between like someone who's a casual drinker and someone who's fully engaged and online and moaning about Waterford or moaning about Dornoch or whatever it is. But for the average drinker, it is still an intimidating category. Irish whiskey just means Irish whiskey to most people. So when you start adding these layers, is that simplifying or making it more tricky? I think of in Scotland that it was really taxation at the end of the 1700s that divided into regions. It wasn't nothing to do with flavor. 1890s again, the people started using regions not really for flavor, but mostly for tax or reporting reasons. And then it really wasn't until 2014 that the way even recognized Speyside as a region, as a defined region. There were only 4 until then. Highland, Speyside was just part of Highland. But a lot of people credit Diageo with their classic malts as getting people back into single malt Scotch, because malt Scotch was too confusing for people. And so by having it discernible by region and by style, it let people, myself included, into this category. So I wonder, what can Waterford do in that regard?
Well, I suppose most of Ireland is predominantly pot still whiskey. You know, and we're producing single malts, I suppose, more than that. We're not going to be doing pot still, and everything that we do is probably done in a Scotch style too. It's only double distilled, where the rest of the country is triple distilled. So, I suppose we kind of stand out a little bit. I'm not saying that there's single malts out there in other distilleries in Ireland, but we kind of stick to our guns and do it the one way. And I suppose we probably will never have a definitive style as such, and we'll never have an age statement and things like that. We'll probably have vintages more than anything else. Like the cuvées will be 2016, 2017, 2018 and stuff like that. And maybe down the years to come that we'll have age statements, but at the moment we have nothing like that. So I suppose the likes of IDL in Ireland, the Irish distillers, they have the likes of huge big ones like Redbreast and stuff like that, and they're all age statement drinks and stuff like that. But that's a pot still category, where we're just a single malt category. So we kind of stand out a little bit from all of those.
Will either of you be looking ever to do your own floor malting at all? Is it something that you're interested? I mean, certainly going to a number of these small craft distilleries in America that in the Hudson Valley that I know are doing their own floor malting. This grain to glass philosophy of some of the New York distillers, New York State distillers. They've got these little farm distilleries. They're growing the grain locally and then they're malting it themselves. Is that something that either Waterford or Dornoch are considering?
We've done one batch of local barley, local malted, and I think I raised it earlier, but yeah, it was one of our distillers. That was his personal project. So him and his brothers did floor malting up at a local mill. The stone ground. It's stone mill powered by a water wheel. To mill the barley, which wasn't a good idea, but that's how it was done. They did floor malting. It was local barley that they bartered for. They kilned it with local cut peat. I think they cut themselves as well. So they went all out with that. Now, wouldn't be doing floor malting ourselves. It's kind of a space and labour thing, really. So we've been investing,
like a mini drum and stuff like that.
Yeah, we've been investigating. I've kind of shortlisted either a mini drum, or I've seen a few mash tun conversions. So you get a cheap kind of semi off the shelf mash tun, convert it with like the kind of mixer arms that you would get, maybe a little bit like what you would get for making bread. It would come through it, and so it's an all-in-one vessel. So you would steep grain. And both air and then hot air through it, so that a local small distillery to us has a little 150 kilogram setup that's just a converted cheap Chinese mash tun. So that's pretty cool. So we're kind of split between that or the drum malting. So it'll probably be more cost effective to do the mash tun conversion, but we might end up doing a drum. It's probably not for this year. It'll be going into next year before we get that up and running, and then we can do our own maltings and take full control of that.
Yeah, it's the same at Waterford. Really, all our stuff is outsourced, our malting and stuff like that, and they malt what we want, what standards we want, and stuff like that. But we don't have anything to actually do it ourselves, I suppose.
I guess production capacity would be much higher at Waterford than at Dornoch, where you'd be able to do that sort of floor malting yourself, almost, like real passion in it. But what's the sort of capacity at Waterford?
1 million litres a year of spirit. That's what we do.
Sorry,
up to 1 million litres of spirit. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of floor malting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, real life, we're only putting out about 12,000 litres of alcohol. If we were to run in the style of a modern distillery, we could probably go over 20. But 12,000's what we've been running the last couple of years. Yeah, but for us, everything, all our barley we use is floor malted currently. So if we were to do our own maltings, I just don't want to do floor maltings. But what I would do, or what we've been sketching out, is building in inefficiencies within either the drum or the mash tun conversion malting system to try and replicate the inefficiencies of floor malting. Because I think one of the interesting thing with floor maltings is you'll get with less consistency, you'll get more variation in the levels of germination. And what you'll know yourself from the pure pot styles in Ireland, the big difference in flavour between green malt and fully modified malt. And with floor maltings, you get kind of a bit of a spectrum in the levels of germination there. So we'd be looking to build in some inefficiencies within the system. So yeah, I mean, yeah, quite often our philosophy is how can we do this worse? Because within the inefficiencies, quite often there's the opportunity for flavour creation.
It's good. It's actually as well. I was just thinking of what Sam said. There's such a difference in ways that we do things, but we kind of have the one between Dornoch and Waterford, but we have the same kind of goal or mantra as such, is that we do want to change little things to give us different variations in our whiskies, which is a nice thing to see, but just on completely two different levels.
But it is still pursuing flavor.
Yeah, it's always
in both cases. It's trying to get. Yeah, which is great, and I think Ian, we spoke a little bit online after Waterford was first announcing that things were coming out, and a lot of the hate that we were seeing online, and friends of mine who were saying shit that was just stupid and just sort of arrogant, if not ignorant, not getting the whole story, and also irrelevant to the pursuing of flavor. I wonder if you guys had a chance, and this is for all of you, Dave, you too, if you had 30 seconds to rebut some naysayer. What could we say? Someone's like, oh, fuck Terroir, fuck Dornoch and those boys using local brewers. Local brewers, my ass. What if someone had that attitude to you? What could you say to just settle them down and be like, hey, chill?
Oh, really, you just look at the passion of these people right here. They're passionate about making great spirits. You go to any distillery, even the big distilleries of multinational companies, and those guys that are making that spirit are passionate about what they're making. It's the best. And that's what these guys here are doing. They're trying to make the best of what they've got. And I've just opened a bottle of Swiss whiskey. All these new world whiskies that are out there now. They're passionate about making. Well, I just saw I knew I saw that a Chiro is coming up there, so I wanted to know what you had.
This is one which was bottled for Barchieri. It's only cast number 180 out of Chichibu. It was one of the first 10-year-olds they bottled, which was in December 2018. Yeah, very good stuff. But,
I have to get myself up to Dornoch pretty soon. There's bottles appearing at every angle here, and I'm just mouth watering. It's just
come for lunch, stay for dinner.
I must admit,
yeah,
I don't really care about what field it's come from. What I really do care about is great tasting whiskey. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
So, I mean, from our point of view, if anyone's got a bad thing to say or naysaying or doesn't believe any element of what we do makes a difference, I mean, what they say isn't going to change how my whiskey tastes. So I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's it. Don't really care. There's not enough of it to go around anyway. So what's one less consumer who you have to fight to convert your product?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gone are days of trying to please and make sure everyone's happy, and we'll just do it our way and see how that turns out.
I suppose the thing about it is that, yeah, exactly what you said. You don't care what we do. Like we're the ones up early in the morning producing this stuff and putting our love and passion into the things, where they're just sitting behind an avatar shouting and roaring at people about, what kind of this? Yeah, like they're just going to a shelf and picking up a bottle, where we're actually out there making the bloody stuff every day. So give us a little bit of a break, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's something to be said. I think, Simon, I like that. Like, kind of, who cares? I mean, most visionaries of the past faced adversity and faced controversy or faced challenges, or were hung and quartered. It's not that serious. It's just a drink, isn't it?
Yeah, you only remember the successful ones, though. There's plenty of people like that who didn't go anywhere with it and were really wrong. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, you'll always have the hotel and a great whiskey collection.
I mean, even if our whiskey's terrible, we don't have any debt, we don't have any shareholders, so we can probably stomach doing our own thing for a while. Worst case scenario, you can just lock the doors for a bit.
We tasted some of your young spirit with Angus, and it wasn't terrible, believe me.
It was a long ferment, 20 months. As a long ferment stuff that was maybe 20 months old, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's no fear of that.
Yeah, be what it's going to be. We're kind of quite accepting of it.
Okay, Ian's got another whiskey in front of him now. He's opening something up. What's he got there? Oh, he's opening something new as well, which is.
While he does it, I've got this Hazelbrook from Springbank Distillery, and I open that because we're talking about regionality and terroir, and doing everything on site or keeping it local. And Springbank in Scotland.
We had some guys up from Bimber there last week.
Yep.
And what we, who'd have thought that, like, making a really good spirit in limited volumes, that it would sell out really quickly and have a high demand. You guys have done a great job, I think. Liquid's good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have you been to Bimber? It's a beautiful distillery, actually.
Is it? I've been told it's like in a rough part of Park Royal.
It's always been the habit. But it's what they do and the scale they're doing it, and it's a complete urban distillery, and it's there's so when you walk in the door, there's so much passion in the place.
We have a pretty good connection with them. We like them a lot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we didn't last time in London. We could once stop by, but we just ran too tight on time. We kind of arranged it, but we were down for the old and rare. Then we had to make a point of going and visiting all our customers and shops that stock our stuff, bars that stock our stuff, and we were just getting way too tight to go and visit. So next time we're down in London, I'm definitely going to stop by for a visit. Oh
yeah, it's well worth it. It really is well worth it. I walked around with my mouth open like this for about 2 hours. with their 7 wooden washbacks and getting their new makes into churns and stuff like that. It's just crazy. They're producing really, really top class whiskies down there. I must give them that.
Right, should we play a game?
That's what I was about to say, Dave. While I just chew some nuts here, I know John Minter loves the audio of me chewing, but
it's Mark Gillespie ready, guys.
Sam Snacks. It's a hashtag. I think Sam Snacks. It is definitely a hashtag. Right. I'm going to share we always play a silly game on our podcast. It's nothing serious. We need a cork to buzz in. So this is your buzzer. Oh, that's good.
Nice.
Oh yes,
all different notes too. We could probably play a song. Beep boop boop boom.
Well, we haven't discussed the importance of cork terroir to its new.
Terroir. Oh, here we go. Yeah. We use glass corks.
So, but is it Irish whiskey unless it goes in Irish oak?
We don't actually necessarily have to use oak in this country. It's just
No, you don't.
Oh.
So is the true terroir of whiskey really American whiskey and American oak? Anyway, enough.
Have you used any? Ian, have you used any non-oak casks?
Yeah, we have. We've done a few experiences with chestnut and cherry and stuff like that. We even have an Andean oak cask that we filled.
Sure.
What?
Andean oak.
Andean.
From the Andes.
All right, cool.
Now at the end of your armies.
My armies. Yeah,
I knew that was coming.
Impressive and stuff like that. What else? We got cherry, chestnut. We have a couple of others now. But the Andean one is we have only one cask of Andean oak, and it's pretty funky stuff.
We've got a couple of weird things laid down, but we'll never. Obviously, it's never going to be whiskey in Scotland because you have to use oak to make whiskey. So it'll be not whiskey spirit drink at the end of the day. But it should be interesting to see what happens.
Do you find the regulations in Scotland hold you back a little bit, or do you think that it's nice to keep these old standards?
Well, to be honest, having those limitations, there's still endless variation available to you within those variations. And if we want to do something else, we can just do it and just not call it whiskey. It's not a biggie really. So with a few non-whiskey things that are basically whiskey but not whiskey in our warehouse. So yes, it's not a biggie really. I prefer to have it so whiskey has distinct, this is whiskey, this is not whiskey. I prefer it. I prefer it that it exists, and if I want to do something else, I just call it whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see if we can play this silly game.
Silly games.
Okay. Right, we're
So
going
the game I see.
We are going to play a game. And you can see it, and I can't see you. I can play this, but I can't really, so I won't play this. I won't pull my cork for you. We are going to play a game. It's called Placing Notes. I had a quick look through, and what we're going to be doing is, how do I? Oh, there we go. We're going to name the style or region these whiskies using their taste profiles taken from the interweb. So what John has done is he's searched the interweb for profiles from regions or countries or styles of whiskey, and we've got to try and guess what they are. And the first one is,
all right, ready, people.
Smoke, fruit, vanilla, and toffee mingle in whiskies of robust and rich character. I can't see who pulled that cork. Go for it.
Ireland.
Ireland.
Not Ireland. Island region. The islands.
Aye.
No, he's saying islands, which is interesting because that's actually not a recognized region. So it is interesting. It's one of these things, like even all those Scottish regions, there were just 4 until relatively recently, and Speyside became one in 2014. So even what we consider the regions, when you look it up online, there's people say 6 regions, people say 4 regions. There's 5 official regions. Islands is not one of them. But let's see, Dave, what is this?
The answer, I got this one actually when I did this a little while ago. This was Campbelltown. That hints of salt.
Spelling error. Can I get a point for a spelling error? Campbell, that's like Soup Town.
Campbelltown. So do it hints of salt, smoke? I mean, that's what I got, that dirty, salty, smoky Campbelltown whiskey. But
in Glen Scotia?
Manure or barnyard?
Aye, Glen Scotia. That's what I was thinking of when that was
Petra.
down. Okay, so that was how it works. Hints of salt, smoke, fruit, and it was Campbelltown that we were describing there. So the next one is.
Describe this as a stupid game. I think you're right.
It is a stupid game. So let's see if we can get this one. Known for their nutty, fruity, and sometimes even spicy character. I can tell you I got this. I can tell you I got this one wrong.
So we'll go Speyside.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. That is indeed a Speyside whiskey. I didn't get that.
To be honest, I was hoping we were going to get like Tasmanian whiskies and stuff like that in there.
Canadian whiskey.
Canadian whiskey. And
oh, maybe later. Well, there's Canada is definitely an answer, as we saw when I fucked up earlier.
But nutty spicy is Highland, isn't it? I mean, Speyside's more pear or fruits.
Yeah.
I would have thought Speyside would be more those honey notes, but hey, what do I know?
God, fucking regionality. Goddamn terrorists. Highland.
Okay, the next one. A beautiful palette of grass, honeysuckle, cream, ginger, toffee, toast, and cinnamon.
Phil's in with the buzz.
I'm going to go Lowlands.
Let's have a look. If you are beautiful palette of grass. Yeah, I guess so. Honeysuckle, cream. Absolutely. There's a point to you, sir.
So wait, these are all Scotland? I'm with Phil. I thought we were doing global whiskey.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like...
Look, you know there's an answer of Canada in there somewhere.
We did see that. Don't ruin it for our viewers, all right?
Smooth, light.
Smooth, light.
Rich oak.
Rich oak. Fruity. Grainy.
Right, that's the most generic notes ever.
Oh, yeah.
Is this a great whiskey with its oak and it's grey? It's light and it's grainy and it has oak. It must be a new grain whiskey.
It must be a whiskey.
It must be a whiskey.
I'm only pulling my cork to pour another dram, so...
So that's not an S. So this is the one that I'm going to say Canada for then, I guess.
So... Okay, the answer was, we don't know this one. We've got a Canadian guess and we've got a generic whiskey guess. Irish. Oh, come on.
Take that.
Yeah, they don't even use oak, do they?
I mean, that is such a generic description, isn't it? I mean,
did Jim Murray write that? That's
Now,
terrible.
Irish whiskey disappeared more or less off the planet in the 70s, and we ended up with 2 distilleries. But now, I think last time I looked, there was 33. I think someone
Yeah,
tweeted
25.
the other week, 33. Is it about time we have regionality in Irish whiskies?
No, they're all making grainy, oaky whiskey, aren't they? That's all they're doing.
They're all making smooth, light, rich oak and fruity, grainy whiskey.
So we're gonna have a real smooth whiskey lock in Ireland pretty soon. Then it sounds like. All right. Lee.
Okay, here's the next one. Sweet and sometimes smoky, with strong notes of vanilla, oak, and caramel.
I guess that'll be.
I'm going to throw Highland out there.
There's an answer.
That's
Wait, so
filling
what's
with
the
a
what's the hairdo on the bottom left? Is that a clue? Is that Donald
Trump,
Trump's
yeah.
Space.
It's not Sam. It's definitely not Sam's hairstyle.
No, it's not
Trump.
me.
No.
It could also look like a flat turkey or a chicken or something.
Yeah, vanilla, oak, vanilla. Yeah, if you said sort of spices like clove, then yeah, that American. Is that American? Is that a bourbon?
I think it's a clue. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you did. I didn't even notice what that thing was. I was trying to work out what it was. I thought, was it a chicken or a turkey or something? Okay.
Flying Trump toupee.
Oh.
It was a clue. There you go.
I'm not sure if bourbon's a region, but we'll accept that. I guess that means American corn-based spirits.
Okay, cornbread, yeah. Okay, the next clue, a typical taste profile of vanilla, smoke, honey, and toffee. And there's another clue here.
American football. Right. A typical taste profile.
A typical taste profile of vanilla, smoke, honey, and toffee. The interweb is rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah, we need more bloggers sharing tasting
Yeah,
notes.
I didn't. Is that an American football or is that a rugby ball?
Yeah, is it?
Oh,
Is it?
wait. Oh, is that a World Cup? The Rugby World Cup?
Ah, it is. And who won the World Cup, Rugby
South
World Cup last
Africa.
year? Yeah, it was South Africa.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because they use some smoky whiskey, don't they? Ah.
I have an idea.
Good guess. Yes.
Yes.
That's select. Was it the 3 Ships Select 5-year-old? Delicious whiskey. Oh, we should get some over here. South Africa. So there we go. The typical taste profile of vanilla, smoke, honey, and
We're
toffee.
waiting for Canada.
South Africa.
Let us know when the last one's up, please.
Okay, I have no idea because I'm presenting as a slideshow. So typical flavors include cinnamon, citrus fruit, cream, caramel, and treacle.
Cheap at it.
Go with the buzz.
There's sheep.
Yeah, you're
going New Zealand.
Yeah, we're really just going from your clues here.
We're
I
going
think.
for the terrible.
I haven't got a clue because I think this is
New
extra
Zealand,
from what
huh?
I was looking at.
I'd say-
New Zealand. Who
Oh my
said New
God,
Zealand?
who would have guessed?
Excellent. Who would have guessed? Is it those little sheep, flying sheep, space sheep
Okay.
even?
Space.
There we go. It was New Zealand. Let's have a look. There must be toffee, cinnamon, and toast.
Pancakes with maple syrup.
Maple syrup. And what would it be?
Canada.
I thought I was going to say goes well with ginger ale.
I'm gonna.
Oh,
It's gotta be.
Dave's pulling.
Canada. I'm guessing it's Canada. The pin on the map hasn't moved, so that's not a clue. That's a clue. It is indeed.
hey.
Canadian. Plenty. Oh, no clue on here. No clue at all. Plenty of tropical fruit and toffee. Of late, there have been a few peaty offerings too.
I mean, I would have said pure pot Irish, but we've already had Ireland, so.
French.
Peaty operation. Any ideas?
France could be a good guess.
Swiss.
Plenty of tropical fruit and toffee. Peaty offerings. Well, we've just had a peated millstone, haven't we?
Oh, Dutch.
Oh, is this all like promotion for boutique products?
Why, does Boutique have anything new out, Dave? You want to talk about it? Or?
Well, just the World Series, of course, but I was expecting a World Series cup down the bottom.
Well, there would be no
I know
point.
what that looks like.
Sold out, you know, so.
Oh, India. There we go, India. Okay. Plenty of tropical fruit and toffee. Of late, there have been a few peaty offerings too.
Fair. I'll accept that.
Okay. Yeah, there have been Amrut and Paul John putting some PT expressions out there, that's for sure. Sweet, fruity, and quite thick. Sometimes exhibiting tropical fruits and herbal notes, oak and chocolate.
Me.
Well, yours is kimchi, peanuts, and what else we olives.
Herbal and chocolate. I mean, German whiskies where I've always found, well, from the ones I've tried have been like very chocolatey and herbal.
Yeah, the herbal.
That's kind of really thrown it out there.
The big sherry sort of.
Yeah, I don't
whiskeys,
Sherry
they like.
flush things they do. Yeah.
Let's have a look. Wales. Wow. Okay.
Poor Welsh.
I always find it quite glassy and light, rather than oak and chocolate. But hey, what do I know? Everyone's palate is different. Is that it? That is the end, and we got the Canadian one right, so that's kind of cool.
Well, I think Phil and Simon got 2 right.
Yeah, there was some. There was a couple of.
I think they got 3 right. I think they got 3 right.
Well, that was terrible.
Well, that was another silly game, and we're so proud to be involved in this with you guys. How long have we spent, Dave? Should we talk about anything else? What I know we've totally gone off script and sort of the arc that we thought this conversation might take. We've touched on everything we wanted to talk about, which is what you guys do at your respective distilleries, how you are pursuing basically the same flavor goals, similar flavor goals, and through different means, which is cool. And that's, I guess, hopefully what every good distiller does. What else do you want to talk about, Dave? Or you guys?
Yeah, I think what we wanted to talk about right from the beginning of this actual podcast, when Dr. Bill didn't turn up, was about the whiskey in space.
He's in space. That's what he's doing. He's bringing barley up there.
It's growing barley in space. No, Ardbeg have sent a whiskey into space.
Again.
No, they did. I guess that is why we want them, because the idea, if we do accept the terroir is a thing, and that, you know, the earth or where something is distilled, the raw materials you use, could we produce a different style if we brought all the equipment from Clynelish or Old Brora, Old Clynelish up to Mars or to the moon? What could we make there? And
that's not space. That's on moons and planets. I thought you meant like in zero gravity distilling.
Yeah, like Event Horizon stuff.
Oh.
Barley orgy at the end.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Oh, meow.
I don't know. Off the top of my head, zero gravity distilling. Well, your wash is going to clump together. So maybe if you like microwaved it and heated it from the center, so you would need a big space microwave, and then some way of collecting what's driven off, because it would probably be driven off in a spherical manner. I don't know.
Centrifugal.
You could do centrifugal distilling. You probably have to. So are we going to design a space distillery, like a satellite?
Well, don't some grain distilleries in Scotland and maybe Ireland too use zero gravity distillation? There's some sort of pressurized system where there's no up, no down. What's that called?
Sounds too expensive for us.
I think they do something like that. I think they do something like that in what's the name of the crowd in Copenhagen?
Oh, with the restaurant and the
distilling guys. Empirical spirits.
Empirical spirits. They do vacuum distillations and stuff like that, do they?
Yeah, a lot of people do vacuum for things like gin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's still gravity.
There's still gravity.
Yeah. It's not floating around.
Well, I think the first thing you should invest in is like those boots from the prison and Face Off, just to keep you going so you can actually function as a normal human being in space.
We'll end up in a Janet Jackson music video.
Directed by Stanley Kubrick. It sounds like we got a great pitch. We just got to find someone to pitch it to. We got a whole idea.
We have a Dave. Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that for you.
I don't know. In the age of crowdfunding, I don't know if we could crowdfund billions to make a space distillery, though.
No, I don't think so.
Well, then Anheuser-Busch, there was a press release. I can't remember how long ago. There was a press release that Anheuser-Busch put out. They were going to try to brew Budweiser in space. That's brewing, of course, different, but that there was some project they were exploring, similar, probably clickbait or sort of share of throat attack, like Ardbeg's small experiment. I don't know what came of it.
Yeah.
But
With the cost-
sending a bottle of whiskey into space is not the same as making it in space. Is that what he was doing? Just
Well,
sending?
no, I think he was doing space maturation, so it was like a test tube of new make with some oak bits in there. I don't know the specifics.
Against WA regulations.
But yeah, but it's not Scotland; it's in space. So technically not Scotch whiskey, I guess.
No, we're going to need an OSWA, I guess, though, an Outer Space Whiskey Association, pretty soon. These genius ideas.
Maybe it's part of Donald Trump's Space Force. Global in space. Enough of this. None of us are qualified to talk about space or planets or intergalactic whiskey.
Dave, what are we qualified to talk about?
Not a great deal, to be honest. I think I could do a little bit about boat building. That's about it. That's what I'm qualified for.
Yeah, there's your background. Exactly. Yeah, boat builder. Like this guy. All over the world has been doing it. Yeah. Born in Mauritius, building all over this planet.
Malta. Grew up in Mauritius.
And do boats sail different when you make them in Mauritius or when you make them in Thailand? Do they taste different when you lick?
When you lick the
barnacles.
Well, I hope we've covered some of the stuff you want to talk about, Dave. Ian, Phil, Simon, thanks a lot for taking the time to do this with us. It has been a while since we've done a podcast. It has been a while since we've even spoken at length, Dave and I. So thanks for putting up with us. Thanks for being a part of it. I've been Dr. Whiskey.
And I've been Boutique Dave. Thank you for listening.
We're in 20 minutes, so let's get the fuck out of here. Uncorked. Bye.
Hey everybody, can you hear my voice?
Yes, a little loud, Sam.
Ah, tough shit, you got no choice. So grab a glass and sit back in your chair, 'cause Uncorked is going live to